Hello everyone, it's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel and tap the notification bell like this video. That helps me to keep making videos. I'd appreciate it majorly. Alright, back to Trump and Hillary. Hillary and Trump. And you know what I think? I think that those two fixed the 2016 election. I believe Hillary Clinton lost on purpose. I had believed that Trump blackmailed her into doing it, into losing on purpose because of that he had teamed up with Epstein. Epstein had the dirt on Bill, pictures of something, whatever. That's, I think a lot of people believe that. And, that he was able to use that to get her to lose on purpose. Before Epstein, there was a time very early on, and I've always kind of had this belief that the two of them were, fixed the election and that she lost on purpose. It's all based on the numbers. I don't want to go into it now, but it's just where she did so badly in places where she needed to do well. It's almost like impossible she could have done that badly without doing it intentionally. But again, I couldn't. Let's just assume maybe that's correct. And but I couldn't figure out if the two of them, came up with this diabolical scheme, or if he, basically compelled her to do it because, like I said, he blackmailed her. I'm kind of back, and initially I thought they were working together, and that there was some huge financial reason that they came up with this idea. And then Epstein came along, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's it. But I'm kind of back to, I'm presenting here that they're in on this together, and that they came up with this from the very beginning. And I think it really might have to do with, largely to do with Brexit, the United Kingdom leaving the European Union, and basically having huge investments that'll benefit greatly from that. Into the basically, tens of billions of dollars for these persons and all the people that are, along for the ride. And that's what I'm presenting here, sort of. So when I left on my last video, and it's like the Clinton Foundation model. I don't know. As I understand it, the Clinton Foundation was a way. The Clintons came up with this clever way of allowing foreign money, huge foreign donations to get into our political process, because essentially that's against the law, and it's very difficult to do that. There's tons of money interest in the United States, but there's an entire globe that's completely corrupt, of huge wealth that can't enter our, for obvious reasons, can't enter our political process because it's against the law. And they came up with this way of, allowing all these countries, these awful players, whomever you want, I don't need to name the countries, and foreign wealthy investors to donate to their foundation as a way to influence the political process. And what I'm suggesting here is very similar to that, but it's like one more dimension more clever, where instead of, it's not exactly that, but instead of influence, it's a way of structuring these political partnerships and these financial interests that basically control all of it, but with some separation with the United States influencing not the political process of the United States, but another country that the United States exerts tons of influence over. It can basically, almost control and push in a certain direction, like Brexit, okay, for a country that just depends so greatly on the United States for a number of things. The United Kingdom, it's a thriving country, but it's a shell of its former self, and does to a great degree depend on the United States. Let me keep going. So, you'll see what I mean, I think, after I've hopefully gone through this pretty quickly. But in this press conference here, Trump is answering. This is a reporter from Sky News. It's the It's the G7 summit. It's at the end of it. He's already had a press conference with Macron. Macron's left the stage. He takes a number of questions. This is the Sky News reporter, and she's asking about Boris Johnson, who he met with, and she actually states that he said that she's saying you've said to Donald Trump that Boris Johnson's the right man for the job. You think he's going to be able to get a deal done on Brexit coming, with the deadline looming in October 31st. And so does that mean you think Theresa May was the wrong person for the job? And he basically says yes, in a nice way, and that she just failed to listen to his advice, and that he told her what to do to get a Brexit deal done, and she didn't listen to him, and because of that she failed. But he thinks that Boris Johnson is the right man. And then he says that he says that he's been waiting for 6 years for Boris Johnson to become prime minister. And that's the part I don't fully understand. Where that time comes from. Why is it 6 years? He's been president obviously since 2016. So, what's 2013? And I don't know, but I kind of think that, Brexit has been something that's been talked about, for years and years. And, anyways, I looked it up. I looked up Brexit in 2013, and I quickly found, an article in the BBC here, and this is David Cameron, who's the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, who was, I guess led the Conservative Party, and he was the Prime Minister from 2010 to 2016. And in this article, and this is from 2013, January, it's basically, he gives a speech where he promises a referendum on, allowing voters to choose if they want to leave the European Union or not. So the concept's been out there since that time. David Cameron has said the British people must have their say on Europe, as he pledged an in-out referendum if the Conservatives win the election. The Prime Minister said he wanted to renegotiate the UK's relationship with the United Kingdom. With the EU, and then give people the simple choice between staying in under those new terms or leaving the EU. In his long-awaited speech, welcomed by many Conservative MPs, Mr. Cameron pledged to hold a referendum during the early part of the next Parliament by the end of 2017 at the latest, if the Conservatives win the next election, the next general election. I was pretty surprised to see that they're talking about 2017 in a 2013 article. So, and that's not of anything major significance, but it's just something I wanted to show you quickly. I've referenced this meeting, this article too many times, and I'm sure people are sick of me talking about it. And this is about the meeting of David Packer with Trump in Trump Tower, 26th floor in his office. Michael Cohen's there. Sam Nunberg enters the office just as David Packer's leaving. In fact, Sam Nunberg says that he saw David Packer leaving, when he went into the office. And reportedly, David Packer was there with an advance copy of an upcoming story about Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew. It was a cover story, and it was sitting on Trump's desk when he went in his office, Sam Nunberg. That's who this reporter spoke to. And she corroborated some of the things that she spoke with Sam Nunberg with Michael Cohen. She spoke to him in prison over the phone, and he basically verified that the things that Sam Nunberg told her were accurate. And most of the time that I focused on this article, I've focused on what was said about Bill Clinton. But David Peck, and this is in February of 2015. It's a couple weeks before Trump goes to CPAC, does an interview with Sean Hannity on stage. Hasn't even announced his candidacy for president yet, which he later does basically in another four months or so, in June of the summer of 2016. So, but he's there with a cover story about Epstein and Prince Andrew, and like I said, I've gone over this many times, and because I've thought when this Epstein story came up, I thought that was it. That's how Trump got Hillary to how he got her to lose on purpose. Epstein had the dirt on Bill Clinton, and he basically just blackmailed her into doing it. But this meeting really wasn't about that. It was about Prince Andrew. In fact, the way Trump says it, it almost is like he's talking about a work colleague or a work associate, somebody he's working with, when he talks about Bill Clinton. The way he says it, it's almost like he's just telling a couple other buddies how funny it is about Bill, you know? Because he says after, and this is Sam Nunberg, Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, who would later go to prison in part for his role in these hush money schemes, they're talking about catch and kill, was in the room when Pecker sat down. Pecker, he later told me, used to send him articles and issues before they were published so that he and Trump could read them. This time he came over in person, though. After the meeting, Trump called in Sam Nunberg, and then a Trump organization employee who saw Pecker leaving Trump's office. Michael was sitting, this is Sam speaking, Michael was sitting in there when I came in, and the issue of the National Enquirer with pictures of Prince Andrew was on his desk, Nunberg recalled. He said not to tell anyone, but that Pecker had just been there and had brought the issue with him. Trump said that Pecker had told him that the pictures of Clinton that Epstein had from his island were worse than Prince Andrew, presumably. Cohen, speaking by phone from the Federal Correctional Institution in Otisville, corroborated Nunberg's version of events, though he declined to add any additional information about the meeting. But just the way he says it there, it's almost like, he just thinks it's funny. And because really the real reason that I now believe, is he was there to talk about Prince Andrew, not Clinton. Because of what my sort of new twist to this theory, that maybe this was all an elaborate scheme for the President of the United States to basically blackmail the royal family to help push along a Brexit strategy that would make them billions and billions of dollars richer than they already are. That's kind of what the operating theory I'm working on right now. So, but I've always looked at this the wrong way. I think I've constantly focused on Clinton when in fact I think they're like buddies here, Clinton and Trump, and like Trump just thinks it's funny, but he's really there to hear about Prince Andrew. In fact, I think Clinton and Trump are working together. They're going to be using Epstein. And whatever information Epstein has on Prince Andrew, at some point, to lean on the Queen to help in the political process to close the deal on Brexit, kind of like what's happening right now. I mean, this is 2015, but what's happened right now is in the last week, Boris Johnson prorogued or sent a prorogation request to the Queen to basically suspend Parliament for the better part of the next month into October. So basically giving Parliament only like 2 weeks to debate whatever deal they come up with before the deadline on October 31st. Basically making it impossible for them to pass any laws to block a no deal Brexit. Exit from the European Union. And it's been reported, I mean, she's already agreed, but she didn't just agree. She agreed within hours to that. Let me stop. And, because this is, and I know this is going to be really long, but there's more to it. I mean, and it's not just Trump. It can't be just Trump. It can't be. Okay? Both the campaigns, many things seem to meet up in London, in the United Kingdom. Even the whole Russia hoax, but it's both campaigns. Teneo, the lobbying firm that Sarah Sanders is in talks of joining, as well as, another Trump official or former campaign communications director, Jason Miller, worked for them for a short period of time. It's been reported. That company, that lobbying firm, established by former Clinton aides back in 2011, has huge private equity interests that basically control it, that are based in the United Kingdom. That's not Trump, okay? That is the Clintons. Let me just pause and then get on to the next step. So let me continue on sort of the emphasis of both campaigns touching down in the United Kingdom, in London. And I think it's important that it's both, And why is that? And I wonder if they both have a humongous vested interest in the United Kingdom leaving the European Union and Brexit getting done, and that resulting in billions of dollars in investment profits. I don't know. That's not important, really. I'm never going to be able to prove any of this stuff. Okay, I'm just saying that it's so crazy that all these things, all these coincidences line up, and they cross paths. And it's not just one side. It's not just the Trump campaign. It's not just the Clinton people. It's both. Okay? Sarah Sanders is not joining some lobbying firm established, which would be bad enough. Okay? Some lobbying firm that was founded by former Trump aides. She's joining a lobbying firm that was established by former Clinton aides. People very close to the Clintons. That one that worked in the Clinton Foundation. Bill Clinton's former personal assistant, Doug Band, who's pictured right there. He helped found Teneo, as well as DeCann Kelly, who was the economic envoy to Northern Ireland, appointed by Hillary Clinton in 2009 when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State. And there's Douglas McGahn, pictured with Ghislaine Maxwell, who is accused, stands accused of being Epstein's recruiter in the sex trafficking, scandal. And I mean, it's not like, that has nothing to do with me. That just is, okay? I'm not joining that lobbying firm. It's Sarah Sanders, okay? She is. It's just silly. So, in Teneo, this lobbying firm, in June 2015, July 2015, about a month after Trump, a little less than a month after Trump announced his candidacy, buys Blue Rubicon and StockWell, two other communications firms in the United Kingdom, okay, and that basically double their workforce, double their size to up to 500 employees. They're now up to 800, okay, and I've already shown. I don't know if George Mitchell's. There's Douglas Band. I don't know if George Mitchell's picture's in here, but believe me, I've already talked about it. I mean, that's one of the things that piqued my interest in this lobbying, from the fact that George Mitchell, Senator George Mitchell, who was named in Virginia Roberts Giuffre's deposition that from 2016 that was unsealed a day before Jeffrey Epstein supposedly committed suicide, and he denies whatever she accuses him of. I think she says that Epstein paid her to have sex with him. I can't remember exactly what the accusation is, but he denies it. He works for this firm. And this is where Sarah Huckabee Sanders is in talks to join, okay? And in addition to that, Uma Abedin did work for them while she was still working at the State Department for Hillary Clinton. It says here that Chelsea Clinton, had a falling out with Doug Band because of this, because he was working for the Clinton Foundation and he had this Teneo, and she didn't like that. Chelsea Clinton actually, Chelsea Clinton studied in England, in Oxford, which is outside of London. I don't know what dates those were. But Jason Miller, who I actually liked. I mean, I thought he was a terrific spokesperson for Trump during the campaign. Terrific. He regularly appeared on CNN. Who was part of Trump, of Ted Cruz's campaign before Ted Cruz fell to Trump. And actually, I think he was Ted Cruz's communications director, as senator as well. Worked for Teneo for a period of time. He's bounced around a bit. He's had some scandal and stuff. We don't need to go into that now. But he worked for Teneo. I mean, and this is not Jason Miller from the Trump campaign joining a lobbying firm established by Trump aides. It's established by people close to the Clintons. And this firm, immediately before, right after, before the election, is teaming up with another firm in the United Kingdom. And then just a couple months ago, a private equity firm, CVC Capital Partners, huge private equity firm with like $75 billion under management, $123 billion committed in various investments in European, pan-European and Asia, whatever. Various investments takes a majority stake in Teneo, buying up half of it, and where some of the executives actually agree to give up a portion of their shares too, so that they own just a little bit more than half, so that they have a controlling interest in it. And they bought it from some other, from a former majority owner, BC Partners, which I believe also was a UK based private equity firm. And that was after 4.5 years, So that would have been like 2015, if that's right, because this is 2019 by now. Right around when this was going on. This deal with Rubicon, Blue Rubicon in StockWell, if you're following me. I'm just saying these things, they point to the United Kingdom, and it's both campaigns that seem to have their fingers in it. And, God only knows what these private equity firms that are massive, huge, 75 billion. I mean, this lobbying firm's only valued at like $700 or $800 million, even though it's got very powerful personnel, 800 people part of it. And keep going. I mean, all these things point to the United Kingdom and London, and it's both campaigns. Why is that? Okay. So, as I continue to ask the question of why both campaigns always kind of seem to end up in London, Christopher Steele's another one. I understand that, it provides like the perfect front where Hillary Clinton seems like she's in opposition to Trump, but again, it ends up back in London. And how do they end up with this guy, who also happens to be, right before he was hired by Fusion GPS, was investigating Russia's interference in the European Union, which is what I've been talking about most of this video, is that this seems like this is all some giant scheme to basically get Brexit. And I have a feeling that there's some huge financial interests that stand to gain massively from that. That's what I'm thinking. So, but how did they end up at this dude, man? And I understand the story about the Washington Free Beacon. I'm not going to go through it. I don't even know it that great, but I know it vaguely, and it's not just more than just from what's reported in Wikipedia, that the Washington Free Beacon first employed Fusion GPS during the primary. The Republicans were doing it basically, and that when Trump secured the primary, the Clinton campaign and the DNC, began paying for Fusion GPS. And at that point, Glenn Simpson reached out to Steele for to hire him to dig up some dirt on Trump about Russia, something like that. And, we don't know whose idea it was. Was it Glenn Simpson's, idea? One of the principals of Fusion GPS, a former journalist from the Wall Street Journal, or was it somebody from the Clinton campaign? Was it Hillary Clinton? I mean, how did they end up at this dude, Christopher Steele, that again is based in London, and like I said previously, was working on something Christopher Steele called it Project Charlemagne. And let me quickly cruise through, and that's all about some research investigation he was doing into Russian interference in certain elections in members of the EU, France, Italy, the United Kingdom, Germany, by some private client. It says, even before Steele became involved in the U.S. presidential campaign, he was convinced that the Kremlin was interfering in Western elections. In April of 2016, not long before he took on the fusion assignment, he finished a secret investigation, which he called Project Charlemagne, for a private client. It involved a survey of Russian interference in the politics of 4 members of the European Union: France, Italy, the United Kingdom, and Germany, along with Turkey, a candidate for membership. The report chronicles persistent, aggressive political interference by the Kremlin, social media warfare aimed at inflaming fear and prejudice, and opaque financial support given to favored politicians in the form of bank loans, gifts, and other kinds of support. The report discusses the Kremlin's entanglement with former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi and the French right-wing leader Marine Le Pen. It also suggests that Russian aid was likely given to lesser-known right-wing nationalists in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. The Kremlin's long-term aim, the report concludes, was to boost extremist groups and politicians at the expense of Europe's liberal democracies. The more immediate goal was to destroy the EU in order to end the punishing economic sanctions that the EU and the U.S. had imposed on Russia after its 2014 political and military interference in the Ukraine. So, I mean, again, both, you know, they end up with this guy Christopher Steele, who's based in London and is working on something where the Russians are trying to disrupt the EU. I don't know. Seems pretty strange to my, it's another huge coincidence of why these things keep ending up in London, and Michael Cohen being represented by Lanny Davis during his criminal proceedings. Lanny Davis is a longtime aide of President Clinton. He was the special counsel to President Bill Clinton from 1996 to 1998, was a spokesman for the president in the White House on matters concerning campaign finance investigations and other legal issues. Lanny Davis, and that's who's was Michael Cohen's attorney, even though he's based in Washington, and Michael Cohen was prosecuted in the Southern District of New York. Long time close associate of the Clintons is Michael Cohen's personal attorney on his criminal matters. Again, there was one more thing that was just comical to me, and then I'll wrap this up. I was looking up the old story on Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton on the Tarmac, and I was trying to find out, and I didn't expect to be able to find out, what plane Bill Clinton was on. And this was in Phoenix, I believe, in the airport in Phoenix, where, Bill Clinton, supposedly, they're both on the tarmac at the same time. It's just a coincidence. And so Bill Clinton, more or less just boards her plane. I don't know if he gave her advance notice, called over, but, and gets on the plane and chats with her. But I was curious as to, how he got there. Whose plane was he on? And it says here private jet. I was curious if it was Epstein's plane, and it wouldn't shock. It doesn't say, and I didn't expect it to find that out. But while I was looking this up, it just cracked me up that I found, that it turned out that one of the things that was discussed I don't know why it does that, because it's on here like 4 times, but whenever I have my stuff open for a while, it says only once. And believe me, I can find it if I have to, which I'll do. Was Brexit. He actually brought up Brexit with Loretta Lynch. This is, during the campaign. Supposedly, this is right before, this is right when Hillary's email investigation was underway, and people thought it was a massive conflict of interest and that he was basically trying to put pressure on Loretta Lynch to not bring any formal charges or to end the investigation into Hillary's uh, email investigation. But one of the things that came up was Brexit. That just cracked me up. There it is, right there. Well, that's one of the places. So he didn't have to. He didn't have to make heavy-handed threats or otherwise put himself at risk of an obstruction of justice charge. No, all he had to do was darken the airplane doorway and prattle on with seeming obliviousness about grandkids, travel plans, coal mining, golf, and Brexit. It's in other places too. This thing does not work. There it is again. Mr. Clinton was then talking about Brexit. He was saying that either he had been reading an article about Brexit or he made a reference. He quoted something that had been in the Times, the New York Times, I should say, about Brexit when my staffer was stepping on to the plane. That's Loretta Lynch. That's what she testified. The way Lynch tells it, you can see her struggling to keep her eyelids open. Bravely, she made another escaped attempt, and we were talking about, again, moving on, Lynch testified. Finally, someone came to her rescue, and at one point, a staffer of mine came on the plane to get me, and at that point, the president was, Mr. Clinton was then talking about Brexit. He was saying that either he had been reading an article about Brexit, and he made a reference, he quoted something that had been in the Times, the New York Times, I should say, about Brexit when my staffer was stepping on the plane. Just thought it was pretty hilarious that I was just trying to look up to see what private plane. It is some private plane. They don't specify whose private plane that he was on the tarmac, Bill Clinton. But when I was here, I found that, and that's what I've been thinking about this whole time. Forgot about Cambridge Analytica. Another thing based in London. Okay, this is the data mining firm. It's now been dissolved. It was basically, I think, went bankrupt. Whatever. It was under investigation because of the whole Facebook, of getting like 87 million Facebook users. Data was acquired with 270,000 users, in some strange way by using the apps or something. I'm not real sure, but initially they were employed by, and it was partly owned by Robert Mercer, the huge hedge fund manager family, Mercer family in Chicago that backed Ted Cruz. And Ted Cruz actually used Cambridge Analytica before he fell out of the race, late in the race in the Republican primary. And then Trump used him. And actually, Bannon was an initial investor in this. I think he was the vice president, Steve Bannon, vice president. And they were based in London, okay? And one of the other things that they were working on besides that was, and they were using the same technology in the same way, using Facebook user data and somehow, I'm not real sure, it's not real important, was Leave EU. One of the organization's campaigns in the United Kingdom's referendum on European Union membership, of basically getting them out of the EU. Same thing. Again, same stuff. And this dude, Jason Miller, was Ted Cruz before he jumped onto the Trump campaign. Became Trump's communications director during the campaign. He was going to be his communications director at the White House, but he ran into some controversy. And this dude landed a job at Teneo, the lobbying firm founded by former Clinton aides. That teamed up with a private equity firm, a huge mammoth private equity firm in the United Kingdom, as well as another, communications firm, two other communications firms in the United Kingdom, just before the election in 2016, excuse me. Blue, Rubicon, and StockWell. I already went over it. So that's it, dude. That's it. That's what I'm showing you here. And you know, people who don't want to believe that these two families, the Clintons and the Trumps could have been working together. I think they're just fooling themselves, and they want to thank this guy for fucking them over. It's just pathetic, dude. But you know, I can't stop people from hurting themselves. But you know, it's just funny if there's any truth to this. You know, at some point there would be some human there would have to be some human communication channels. Okay, you know, and you know, it's just hilarious how what's in the news recently about Trump's kids. You know, and you can't go after the kids. You know, but Chelsea, who's studying in Oxford in the United Kingdom. Um, and Ivanka are friends. But nobody, this is all doesn't, nobody won't, you know. That's the story there, man. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Don't subscribe to my channel. Makes no difference to me. Believe me. Give me a like down below. Don't give me a like down below. I will see you, though, in the next video. Later, man.